I just went, boom, BMX. I'm focused on BMX. I said to my parents, and this is in my book as well, give me a year after school, after I graduate school, to just focus on BMX to try and see if I can make it.
Hey mate, I'm Coach Mitch and welcome to the Unbreakable Man Podcast. It's my goal to help you achieve excellent results in the area of your health and physical fitness, your career or business, your relationships, and in your own personal passions. This is going to be your one-stop shop if you are the kind of man who wants to achieve his fullest potential in life. And the only way to do that is by becoming unbreakable. Hey guys, welcome to the Unbreakable Man Podcast. Today I have the pleasure of sitting down with Logan Martin. How are you today, Logan?
I'm good.
Great to have
Very
you here,
good.
my man.
Thanks for having me on.
So, if you don't know, Logan Martin is BMX world champion, Olympic Games gold medalist. It's all very, very cool stuff and big highlight moments in your life as well, and obviously in your career, which is pretty sweet. Yeah. But at the end of the day, you know, this is a podcast for men, and at the end of the day, we're just two guys living our lives in however we're doing it, right?
Yeah.
And it's really important, you know, for you listening to this right now, you know, what is the life that you're trying to create for yourself? How would you actually like things to look? And regardless of whether you think you can do it right now or not, it's important for you to get clear on what you really want to do. So you'd be very surprised, I think, by how far you can go when you get clear on those things and then you start to take some action towards it. Now, before we get into the nitty-gritty of what it takes to be the best in the world at something, I just want to get to know you on more of a personal level and also help, you know, the guy who listens to this right now connect with Logan Martin.
Sure.
Right? I think I'm probably already going to have the answer to this question, so I'm going to exclude BMX. You can't say BMX for this, all right? Yeah. What is something that you do for fun?
So it probably also involves my career, but okay. I enjoy going to the gym. You know, working out is a big part of my life. But then also a lot of family time for me as well. That's sort of where my life is at the moment. I have 2 young kids. So any downtime I get away from the gym and away from riding is spending time with my family. Yeah. And that's where I find enjoyment. Nice.
Yeah, that's great, man. And, you know, we'll talk about this kind of later down the track in this episode as well, guys. But if you don't know, Logan's got a book out called Journey to Gold. And, you know, in that book, you know, I got to see that you're the kind of guy that just likes pushing yourself really in whatever area you do stuff in. Like, so when it comes to your training, you know, what are you really looking for when you're doing training?
I guess it's consistency for me. It's always been about consistency. You know, consistently working hard at becoming the best I can be. Yeah, but consistently putting in the work, being consistent. I travel the world competing. That's what I do. So being consistent at competitions, which obviously, yeah, it comes from being consistent in my everyday life, leading into a competition. So that's what I sort of strive for, is consistency in my everyday life. Consistently putting in the work.
Nice. Are you, whenever you do anything, are you like, I got to be the best at this thing? Are you really competitive?
Look, I probably was more so when I was younger. I was like, oh, I want to be the best. You know, I want to beat these guys. I want to be better than this person or whatever it was. But now as I've been doing this for longer, you know, I've been professional in BMX for 10 years. I also want to be my best. I focus on myself more than focusing on somebody else. I just want to put in as much work as I can possibly put in and be the best version of myself.
Sure.
And that's sort of where I've learnt along the way how I can be happy and keep pushing myself is try to better myself.
Nice. I think the default probably is to compare yourself to others.
Yeah.
Like that's how you're going to start out.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
You know, because that's kind of all you're seeing. And also, you I guess you're coming up the ranks as well in your exact scenario. But I think that probably anyone who follows that path for long enough, I think will come to the conclusion that you're really just comparing yourself to your previous self.
That's right.
At the end of the day, you know, the main guy you're competing with is, you know, what you were capable of last week.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's cool, man. And I think that that's a really healthy way to push yourself to.
Yeah, of course.
You know, because you can look at someone else and be like, and it can be inspiring, but it can also sometimes be demoralizing.
Yeah, of course. You never really want to compare yourself to someone, because you try and, you know, you if you're not where they are, you start to sort of, you know, reflect on yourself, like, oh, why aren't I there? But if you keep pushing yourself every day, then you can get to where you want to be.
For sure. Yeah.
Obviously, you can look up to people and whatnot, but I think it all comes back to focusing on yourself.
Nice. Yeah, cool, man. So, what would you say, and I don't know if this is something that you do much of, but do you have like a favorite book, or a book that's kind of influenced your life the most?
Not really. I never really have read too many books. I've listened to some audiobooks and things like that along the way, but I think for me, like along my journey, I've seen like certain quotes or sort of, you know, certain motivational speakers, and certain things have just sort of clicked with me.
Okay.
Along the way, that changes along the way as well, but certain things sort of stick with me, and I'm like, that's relevant to what I want to do, or I understand it in a different way, and sort of sticks with me, and I focus on that motivational quote or something like that.
What's one that comes to mind?
Hard work beats talent.
Yeah.
Which is pretty straight up. Just if you work harder than the talented people, then you know you can be better than them.
Yeah.
In a way.
I remember that one from your book.
Yeah.
That was one that they mentioned. I think it was right at the end of the book when we spoke about, you know, some of those ideals that you have.
Yeah.
And, you know, again, for guys, if you read the book, then I think you just stumbled upon the most obvious thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so if I just exercise, get myself really fit, and I eat well, and I train hard, and I practice more than everyone else, I'll be the best. You know what I mean? It's like
it's basic.
It's not rocket science, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, you know, and you know, I think that, you know, when you think of BMXing, I think that most people's idea of it is probably not these guys, like pro athletes, regimented, all this kind of stuff. Like that maybe it is today, but that perhaps may not have been the standard from when you were coming up, you know. And then I think that when one guy like yourself decides, okay, well, I'm actually going to take this seriously, then, you know, I'm an athlete first and foremost, and BMX is the sport I've chosen to do this in. You know, you take it to that level, and it just gives you a leg up over your competition.
Yeah, of course. And then you get to a point of staying consistent with putting in the work, and then you find yourself, you know, you find people trying to copy you, or
they're gonna have to
trying to reach where you are. And once I saw that sort of pattern and me, I was able to stay consistent with the work and continue pushing, no matter if the, you know, situations where I lived, you know, changed. If, you know, skate parks closed down, or people didn't have people to ride with, I was able to stay consistent with the work. I was able to keep riding, keep working out, because I was focusing on bettering myself. You know, I was able to stay consistent with it. Then, you know, some people, they can't stay consistent when things change.
Yeah.
I think the main thing that I'm trying to say is that consistency leads to bigger things. If you can stay.
What helped you stay so consistent then?
I think it's an inner drive to succeed. I saw what was working for me, and I knew what I had to keep doing every day. Motivation was never a factor for me. I enjoy riding my bike. I enjoy working out, and those are the two sort of key things that helped me be successful in my career and in my sport. So that was never really a factor. Some days, obviously, I was less motivated, but I had the discipline behind me to keep going, to show up and do the work.
Yeah.
But I think it comes back to an inner drive to be successful.
Obviously, if you have that feeling, and I feel that way myself, like I'm just going to keep going until I make it the way I want it to be, you know? Were you, because, look, I guess one of the things that is important to recognize about that is because I think I've always been quite a driven person, but I feel more driven now than I ever have before. And I think for me, it's because I've probably never felt as connected with what I'm doing as I do right now.
Sure.
You know, so for yourself, have you always attacked everything with the same level of kind of drive and discipline as you do your BMXing? Or would you say that you had that innate drive was there, and then BMXing was the thing that really made you hyper focus?
No, I think I always, like, I definitely always put in 100% on whatever I was doing. Before BMX, I was playing rugby league, and I was always, you know, giving it my all in training.
And then there's bit in the book too.
Yeah, giving it my all in games. Even like schoolwork, like I hated school, but when I was in the classroom, I was there to do my work, and I was like focused on my work. Outside of the classroom, I was probably a little pest, but didn't like school, but still focused on, you know, the task at hand. And when I found BMX, I just found something that I could put all my energy into and all my focus into. And then obviously found I could probably take it pretty far, and had a bit of talent there on a bike. And then when I was, about probably 17, 18, I really focused in on trying to make it professional. So I think I've always had it. It's just something I had in me from a young age, just a drive to be good at whatever I was doing.
Interesting. I think because it's a tricky thing to kind of measure and quantify, and it's not like, if it was something we could just chuck in a bottle and sell to people, that'd be really awesome. But it's not, right? So I guess like the Unbreakable Man podcast as a whole is kind of like, well, what's the difference? And what's the difference between the guys that are crushing it right now and the guys that aren't kind of creating the life that they want to have for themselves, you know? And how can those dudes who feel that way take some of the secret sauce from those guys that are crushing it and apply it in their own life, you know? And I think that, you know, that innate drive to succeed, you know, I know what you mean. And I think that perhaps some people have maybe more of that than others. But I think we all have that to a degree. Like we all want to have a good life, and we all want to make things work for ourselves. And you know, perhaps it's like, how much of that do we have in us, and how much of, let's say, fear of failure have in us, and how those two things kind of balance out, you know? Because, like, for example, what you do is quite, you know, it's quite risky in a lot of ways. You know, there's a threat of you hurting yourself pretty well on even just training in your backyard. You know? So for you, have you always been maybe not too like fearless to a degree, or not too considerate of the consequences of going all in on something? Yeah,
for sure. I think, you know, in the sport of BMX especially, it is quite hard to make, you know, a decent living off the sport. You know, around 17, 18, you get to a point you're like, should I get a part-time job and try BMX as well? Should I work, save up some money, try and travel overseas and go to a contest? And it's a hard thing to sort of figure out. And I just went, boom, BMX. I'm focused on BMX. I said to my parents, and this is in my book as well, give me a year after school, after I graduate school, to just focus on BMX to try and see if I can make it. Started making, you know, a little bit of money here and there from some shows, which would sort of keep me going a little bit. Then I started traveling overseas, and, you know, really didn't have a backup plan. I just wanted to focus on BMX, and obviously ended up making it in BMX. And there was I never really thought about like, what if I don't make it? It was always just focused on BMX. I'm gonna make it, essentially. Where some guys will do, you know, part-time job or a job and try and do BMX and try and do both, and you know, they sort of just stay mediocre at sort of both. And I was just full focused on making it. No backup plan. And there was no sense of, you know, fear of failure for me. It's just, this is what I want to do, and I'm going for it. Yeah, essentially. Yeah,
man, I think that it's like you get so clear on this is how I kind of see myself spending my life for the future. You know, like obviously it would be nice to, you know, be the best in the world or whatever it is that you're doing, and making those top tier paychecks and all that kind of stuff. But even if you're just getting to do the thing that you genuinely want to do with your life every single day, and you're making a living off of it.
Yeah.
But that's still pretty awesome.
Good. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think, if you've identified the thing that you actually want to spend your life doing, perhaps the decision to go all in on it is not easy, but definitely.
But it makes it easier. Yeah, of course.
Right? Because you go like, look, man, this is the main thing for me. This is everything I want to do.
Yeah, that's right. And I guess for me, once I started traveling to competitions, when I was 20, I started doing okay at competitions overseas, and you'd get a few grand here and there for some of the smaller events, and that would keep me going. And I had some sponsors, which was helping out. And I'm like, well, I'm doing okay. I'm going to keep competing and keep trying to push my level of riding and really try and make it to the top of the sport. And that was obviously helpful once I got some sponsors and had some money coming in. So
yeah,
it was good once I got to that position to just fully focus on BMX.
For sure.
Well, I didn't have to worry about
paying the bills and
need to go get a job,
food on the table, all that kind of stuff.
Right, yeah. Just every day become about pushing myself.
Yeah, cool. Obviously, I think that every man watching this who's fortunate enough to listen to conversations like this at a younger age, like, awesome, because now you can start to make these moves before you have the commitments of wife, kids, mortgage, all that kind of stuff. Before it's like, I really do need that side hustle, that side job to make things go. And and obviously, it's a massive help when you've got people in your life who like support you as well, and just like, we can see the potential there. Yeah, we want to put in for that.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty cool. If you are in that situation where you're young and you're watching this right now, and I hope that you see that Logan was 18 or 17 when you really started making it like, this is what I want to do. That was your decision.
Yeah.
Get clear on that stuff as quickly as you possibly can, guys. For you, when obviously you discovered BMX, like, you weren't searching for your profession for the rest of your life when you found BMX. It was more like, this is something. You ended up at the skate park.
Yeah.
And then you went, this is cool. Well, what was it even like right in the beginning? At what point did you go, I'm actually going to take this pretty far? Not even thinking about making it a living, but just thinking about, I just want to get really good at these tricks.
Yeah. So I started riding when I was 12. Started just going out of the skate park. Started to enjoy it. It became an everyday thing. Skate park after school.
What did you like about it?
On the weekends. To be honest, it was just a hangout spot initially.
Sure.
And we'd all just meet up at the skate park, and we'd mess around, and we'd ride, and friends pushing each other. We'd learn some tricks, and I guess we just sort of fed off learning new tricks. We fed off each other learning new tricks and pushing ourselves. It obviously there's a big injury side of BMX, which obviously every time you ride there's an adrenaline rush and things like that, and that was quite cool to get an adrenaline rush each day as well. Sort of chase that feeling each day, and it comes back to just pushing yourself each day. Trying to one up your tricks from yesterday and just progress from there. And I just enjoyed that. It was cool from the start, and every day it was about just progressing and learning new tricks. And when I was about 15, 16, I was starting to do some of the tricks that the professionals at the time were doing, and I started to realize maybe when I'm 20, if I kept learning these big tricks every day, then I can be at the top with these guys.
Sure.
So it was just there. It was just constant progression each day.
Yeah.
Small steps lead to big pathways, I think.
When you started, would you say that you picked it up fairly easily, or was it quite a challenge for you?
No, I think I picked it up pretty easy. There were some guys that were better than me, that were that I was the same age as, and I was sort of trying to play catch up with them. And
had they been doing it for longer than you?
They'd been at the skate park a little bit longer than me. But yeah, I would be trying to learn the tricks that they already can do, and I think that was quite fascinating, trying to play catch up with some guys as well. But once I had a bit of time on the bike, a few years in, then I started to realize maybe I did have a pretty good knack for the sport, and I did start to pick up things pretty quick. I always sort of picked up sports pretty quick. I was good at all round sports, so anything I sort of focused in on, I sort of thought that I could become good at. My first love was rugby league, and I wanted to make it to the NRL, but got to about 12, 13 and started to lose the love for the sport and found BMX. So any sort of sport I played, I sort of picked up pretty well. And then after a few years on the bike, I started to realize I can,
totally
probably take it pretty far.
Yeah, I think that anyone who, when you recognize that you have a strength, like let's say I go down to the gym with my 3 mates for the first time when we were 15, and just naturally, just because perhaps my upbringing or maybe some genetic factors, I'm a little bit stronger than the rest of them just naturally. Of the 3 of us, I'm going to be the one that's probably going to keep going the most, because you get that little boost, like, oh, this is something for me. Here's where everyone else is, and even though we're kind of at the same level in our lives, I'm just like here, a little bit higher. And I think you get that confidence boost and that positive feeling from being in that situation, and then you just start to invest in it more, and that's how you get real good at it.
Exactly.
You see that there's potential for you there when you compare yourself with the other people in the same sort of level. And then you just go, okay, well, what happens if I go hard on this? I think.
Sure.
And you might find, like in your situation, you start off at the skate park with all these guys. You're kind of starting roughly around the same level. Maybe you're picking things up a little bit quicker, and over the years, you're all starting to get good. But perhaps that some of those earlier understandings that you had about yourself and about your extra bit of potential that you might have had, everyone else starts to drop off, and you just keep going and sort of pick up the ball and run with it. To all the way to the end zone, right? I think like conversations like this, it's just trying to figure out what's that formula. What is the thing that we can take and apply in our own lives, or how can we perhaps explain why we've ended up in the situations that we've ended up in? And then once you are aware of those things, you can start to adjust some of the things that have got you to an undesirable situation, and take some of the advice or insights from guys like yourself or guys like myself, and start to apply them within that undesirable situation and make those changes. So it's a tricky thing too, and I think that you can look at, like, guys will probably listen to this and go, "Oh, this guy was born awesome, and he was like, smashing it from the beginning. Like it was a done thing for Logan, But even just you discovering BMX was still kind of a chance thing, really.
Yeah, of course.
You might never have stumbled upon it if you'd been somewhere else.
Yeah, that's right.
You know what I mean? Or if your brother hadn't gone down there initially.
Yeah, it is and obviously it's not a one formula fits all for everyone. Everyone's got to find their own sort of niche, their own knack, and chase what they actually want. But yeah, it was definitely a chance thing for me to find BMX and sort of go with that, And I had a similar upbringing to everyone else that I initially rode with, and they went down a different path than what I did. And things like that. I could have just, been working a normal job as well if I just, sort of got over BMX or didn't quite enjoy it as much as the other guys did. And it was just something that I found, and it worked for me, and I enjoyed having something to focus on. That would sort of keep me out of trouble as well.
Yeah, well, when you look at the other guys that you started out with, what do you think is the difference between yourself and those dudes? And it's not like I'm this and they're that. It's just so we can understand.
It always comes back to mentality. The mindset you have towards certain things. My mindset was trying to be successful, or trying to put all my energy into something that I could become good at. Whereas the other guys were chasing temporary happinesses on the weekend and parties and things like that, and I sort of just steered away from that sort of scene, and I believe that comes back to a mindset thing. The level that I'm at now is so based around mindset. You can become good at any sport if you put the time and the effort in, and then where you actually go in your sport will be based on mindset.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, then I guess that is like the real take-home message I want for everyone who's listening to this, because I don't want people to get it in their heads that you have to be born a certain way to achieve a certain level of success. It's the choices that you make.
That's right. Yeah.
It's the way that you think. Yeah. It's going to produce the actions that you take, and that's going to turn into the results you get.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know, now obviously some people are fortunate enough in their lives to have, let's say, like their parents are great mentors.
Yeah.
You know, obviously that not everyone gets that, but some people you bump into a mentor and it's like, it's that someone outside of the family that changes your life and perhaps takes you under their wing or something like that, and it helps instill those mindsets within you.
Yeah, yeah.
For you, who helped you develop the mindset that you've got? Where do you think it comes from?
Little things from my parents. You know, I did have my family around me and stuff growing up. I had a good household, healthy household. My parents were together and things like that, and just little things from both of them, I think, is what has helped me create my mindset or understand things about my mindset. But ultimately,
what did it help you understand about your mindset then?
I don't know. I think just like with, you know, my parents instilling in me certain morals, you know, being respectful and just, you know, just certain little moral things that I was taught when I was younger helped me create a mindset of wanting to be a good person, and then along the way you start to understand that those things are a big part of mindset as well.
Yeah.
So I believe that instilling certain morals into me, which my parents did, is what helped me understand more about mindset. If that sort of makes sense, it's quite hard to explain that, but
what is one of those morals that has had the biggest impact on you, in your opinion?
Yeah, I don't know. Probably, you know, respect is a big one. But you know, being respectful to everyone helped me just want to, you know, be a good person and do the right thing first and foremost.
Yeah.
So that's why when I found BMX, I was able to put all my energy into BMX, and it wasn't, you know, annoying other people or just doing disrespectful things out on the streets and things. So first and foremost was being a respectful person and being brought up in a healthy household, and just doing that.
I can see how that helped you, perhaps with that discipline initially of wanting to, okay, well, I'm going to spend my time doing something productive, and instead of doing something negative or, you know, causing some issues for other people and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So that's cool. One thing I really liked in your book that kind of showed me, you know, the kind of people that your parents were. I love the fact that your dad went around looking for old mattresses to bring down to the skate park for you guys to practice your tricks.
Yeah.
You know, that to me says, hey, look, you know, this is something my son's doing, because your dad's not a BMXer, is he?
No,
He's never.
No, that's right.
Yeah, he didn't really care about BMX, but he saw his son trying to apply himself in an area and was like, okay, what do you need, son? Okay, you need this to help it be safer for you to push yourself with these tricks a little bit more.
Yeah.
Awesome. You know, I thought that was really cool that, you know, your dad went around picking up old mattresses off the side of the road to bring to the skate park, not just for you, but for all your mates to try these things.
Yeah, exactly. And that was the, you know, a big thing as well, is that my parents always supported what I wanted to do. And that obviously helps a lot, having that support from your parents, and, you know, them sort of just letting me sort of, you know, help steer me down the right path, but ultimately let me decide what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
Which obviously helped a lot as well.
I think, because what I kind of got from that was, I don't know if your parents ever said this to you explicitly, but to me that's like your dad saying, son, you can do whatever you like. You can do whatever you want if you're willing to push yourself. You know, if you're willing to do the hard work. You know, and you know, obviously your father was there to help you, you know, do that hard work that you needed to do. take on some of those kind of riskier stunts and learn how to do the things that you need to do to get into what you've gotten into.
Yeah, of course.
You know, so, and I think that, you know, if you impress upon your kids that, you know, look, you really could be fantastic at anything if you applied yourself fully and really went for it.
Yeah.
Like just that belief that's kind of handed down to you because I believe in you, so you're naturally going to start to believe in yourself.
So, yeah, exactly. Right? Yeah, that's right. And once you start to have that support and understanding that your parents, you know, believe in you and want the best for you, as any parent does, then you do start to get that self-belief and start applying yourself more.
Yeah. Cool. They'll give you opportunities even to take things to that next level. Like just the mattress is a simple thing, but it is still necessary.
Yeah, it's a big thing for sure.
Yeah. Great, man. And so that, again, for the guys listening to this, not everyone's fortunate enough to have parents like that.
Yeah.
You know, and that's not even, you don't even necessarily need to come from a household with bad parents. It's just that, you know, your parents just may not have been brought up to have a lot of self-belief either.
Yeah.
It might just, okay, you know, you get a job and you work and you pay your bills and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You know, there's not that drive to go, you know, well, what do you really want? Like, let's have a think about it. How are you going to get it? You know, so there could be people, men watching this right now who just have never even been exposed to that way of thinking.
For sure.
You know, so for the guys watching this, what I'm kind of getting from this is that find someone who believes in you, right? Or spend your time around people that see things in you that you might not see in yourself. And whilst that sounds like a weird thing to do, like how do I advertise that I'm looking for someone to believe in me? You know what I mean? But I think that, you know, if you have an interest in some area and you want to get good at it, and you go, so find people that are good at that too.
Yeah.
You know, and they'll look at you and they'll go, you can do that. You can climb up that mountain.
Yeah.
I know you can do it. Like I've seen guys like you do it.
Yeah.
You know, based on what I have seen from you, you can push yourself further than you have.
Yeah.
You know, so you got to have that self-belief, right?
Yeah.
And if you have other people that kind of foster that within you, then that's going to make it much easier for you to have yourself, right?
That's right.
And a lot of it's just going to come from surrounding yourself with people that like the thing that you like, I think.
Yeah.
And they're going to be excited to teach you because it's already something that they like to do.
Yeah.
And they're probably going to see stuff in you that you don't see yourself.
Yeah.
You're here, but they're looking at everything.
That's right.
From that other perspective.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all about surrounding yourself with positive people, positive energy, and that's exactly what you're saying is people that uplift you, and you know, being around those types of people.
Yeah.
And obviously, if you guys are doing the same thing, then chances are they're gonna, you know, help bring you up.
Yeah, definitely. At any point throughout your journey, have you had any kind of moments of doubt or any second guesses or anything like that, or even just where you've had to kind of have a conversation with yourself and kind of G yourself up a bit?
In certain circumstances, certain competitions, or you know, things like that. Not overall like
doubting the path. Kind of.
Yeah,
sure.
Never doubted the path or like that. But certainly had times where I'm like, man, I don't know if I can, you know, win this contest, or or I had a bad practice on that competition course, and then I'm like, how do I turn this around? And I have those conversations with myself, like, let's go back to, you know, what you know, what works for you on this course, because they always change. The next practice, go and apply yourself in the way you ride the course the best.
Sure.
And I've definitely had, you know, those moments of like, man, I don't know if I can win this one, or, you know, if this contest is for me. And I've been able to turn that around because just of believing in myself and being able to tell myself that the work has been done, and I am capable of turning this week around, essentially.
How does that conversation with yourself go when you're in that moment where you kind of have to, you know, you have that self-belief, but perhaps you really needed to sort of dip into it a little bit more in that moment.
Yeah.
How does that conversation go? How do you sort of turn your mindset around?
pretty much just telling myself that, you know, the work has been done, knowing in myself that the work has been done.
Yeah.
You know, I haven't slacked off in the lead up to the event, which I you know that I don't.
But that's the thing too, right? Like, because if you're that guy who's like, you haven't done everything you could have done leading up to it, okay,
then things start playing in your mind, like, oh, maybe I should have done this better, or should have done this more. But knowing that I have done the work, it's like, okay, the work has been done. You're ready to go for this contest. Let's just, you know, start believing, know that you can win this, anything can happen, and just go and give it your best. And that's pretty much how the conversations go. Is telling myself to just do my best.
Yeah.
Especially obviously at this stage of my career, but always comes back to just doing the best I can do.
Yeah. So when you have that sort of doubtful feeling prior to that conversation with yourself, what kind of mode do you click into after you've had that conversation, from doubtful to what?
I click into being confident, more confident in my approach. You know, the next practice, or you know, waking up the next morning just more confident. First and foremost, and then just applying myself. You know, like physical preparation, just knowing, you know, okay, on the course today I'm doing this, and really just focusing on. You know, I've had the conversation with myself to be the best version, you know, to do my best. Focus on how I do my best, which is pretty much how I go about it.
Yeah,
it's you know, starting with being more confident, and then knowing that I can do it.
Yeah, definitely. I think because I get that feeling myself. Obviously, I think we all do, right? We have those doubtful moments, especially when you're trying to do something you've not done before.
Yeah.
Whether it's a new competition, or, for example, myself, I ran a seminar last night.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm standing up and I'm 28 and I'm speaking to a room full of 40 odd year old guys.
Yeah.
Trying to help them create better lives for themselves.
Yeah.
You know, and I actually enjoy the process. I really love coaching guys, so that's why I'm willing to put myself in a situation where I might look like a dickhead, right? Yeah. Just like you with your BMX. You love BMX, so you run the risk of, you know, potentially, you know, falling or whatever it is in front of the audience, you know, because you want to get out there, you're doing the thing you love to do anyway, right? And for me, when I think about, well, what if I look like a twat? You know, what if I'm screw this up, or if it doesn't work, or anything like that? What I tell myself is that, well, regardless of whether this one competition or this one speaking engagement works out the way I want it to or not, I'm going to get to where I want to get to anyway, right? Like, this might not work. This one point in the journey might be one that I look back on and get some lessons from. But that's not going to change anything about the future result that I'm going to achieve, you know? And so then in my mind, I go, so if I fuck it up, it doesn't matter. It's not going to change anything about the long-term result.
Of course.
You know what I mean?
And I think the main thing about that is either you try at the certain task, and you might fail at it, or you might succeed at it. But if you don't try, then you haven't succeeded at all.
Exactly.
So it's always a point of trying as well.
Yeah.
Whether it's going to work out or not, if it doesn't work out, you take notes and try to understand what happened and how you can better it for the next time.
Yeah.
But if you don't try, you don't know.
Exactly. I think too is also recognizing, like, what is really going to happen if you fail? What's really going to happen?
Yeah, exactly.
Are you going to die? Is there anything going to change about your day tomorrow? I mean, like, look, you know, like for you, for example, you're practicing your tricks, you know, worst case scenario, you injure yourself, you know, and you're out for a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's annoying, but even that's not as likely, really. You know, most of the time you might just have to bail or something.
Yeah.
You know, so that's the outcome. Even the worst case scenario outcome is still not anything that's going to change that future result for yourself.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
You know, like what most people are afraid of failing just because they think other people are going to think they're an idiot, something like that. You know, When in actual fact, most people just don't shit.
care. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, that's right.
You know what I mean?
And I think that's why a lot of people don't try certain things, because they're like, oh, what if that person thinks I'm an idiot? Or, a lot of it comes back to because you care what people think. When, ultimately people don't really care. They might have a bad opinion, and then they'll go on about their lives. So you just got to get in there and try.
Absolutely.
And keep trying.
Yeah.
And yeah, if don't necessarily care about what people think, which is a hard thing to do. You've got to learn to, adapt to not caring about what people think. But ultimately, people don't care what you do.
Absolutely. I mean, like even if you're watching this right now and you have a hard time wrapping your head around that, go back in your mind and think about someone that you embarrass yourself in front of right now.
Yeah.
And then ask yourself, do you think that person's even considered that moment?
Yeah.
Since,
exactly.
Right?
Yeah. That's
and even ask yourself how you feel about it. Yeah. Until you just thought about it then, you didn't care about it yourself.
No, that's right.
You know what I mean? So it's just going to be exactly like that again.
Yeah.
So it literally is unimportant completely. Like it's nothing.
That's right. Yeah. And a lot of the time, the person that you don't want to look bad in front of you will never see ever again in your life, or you'll never cross paths with that certain person ever again.
Yeah.
And it's like, when you start to think of it like that, you're like, no, I will try this, or I will do this and give it a go.
Yeah.
Because this person's never going to see me again.
Yeah. Screw it.
Things like that.
Who cares? Why am I going to let this stop me from doing what I really want?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
So the Unbreakable Man podcast is really about helping guys overcome their struggles, because it's like, here they are, here's where they want to be, and there's barriers in between them and their goal. It's about overcoming those barriers, and some of those barriers are physical, some of those barriers are mental.
Yeah.
Right? And we all have them. So what is something that you struggle with, or something that is challenging you right now to be better?
So challenges that I've had to face, most recently is finding a balance between training the right amount, not being injured, and hanging out with my family. Because, having a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old and a wife that I've got to keep happy, and they're obviously my they're my number one priority. My career comes second and whatever, but trying to find that life balance is what I've struggled with. But I am making it work as well, and I travel a lot, so certain trips that will come on so that I'm not away from them for heaps amount of time throughout the year, and pretty much finding life balance, which a lot of people struggle with life balance in their life as well, and that's probably a difficult thing for me, and because I have 2 young kids.
Absolutely, and you're to be at your level and to maintain it requires such a amount of time and consistent energy.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's what provides for everything too.
Yeah,
right. It's like these are the people I'm working so hard for, but I also got to do the work so I can provide for them. That's like every dad has that experience.
Yeah, of course.
Well, I mean,
exactly.
So, what has been really helping you find that balance?
I guess starting to understand myself more, understand that, I am getting older. I'm 29, almost 30 this year.
So old
this year. Yeah, well, getting older, and knowing that I have to take some rest days, throughout the week, and, on those rest days, utilize that as family time. So I take 2 days off a week to just hang out with my family. No work, and the other days it's riding and gym is my main priority, so that I know I'm still putting in enough work. Hanging out with my family still a lot. The afternoons are spent with my family, so I'm still getting a lot of family time in there, but also able to get good chunks of training in as well.
Yeah.
So it's really structured for me. Like, all right, this time I'm riding, this time I'm working out, and then I've got to go look after my family, and finding a good structure, and being really on time with that structure.
Yeah, that's
what's sort of helping me find that balance.
You need a plan, right?
Yeah.
You need to have a plan. How am I going to make this fit?
Yeah, exactly. And obviously before family, it was just, I got the whole day to ride my bike and then work out, and doesn't matter what time I get home, doesn't matter what time I leave the house, whatever.
Yeah.
It's just me. And yeah, now it's finding that structure.
Yeah.
You know, I found the structure now, but yeah, making sure that works, and
Yeah.
everything is smooth sailing in my life. Because if one thing's out of balance, then
Affects everything.
it affects everything else. Yeah, exactly. So
Exactly. You can't be your best out there on the course if you're thinking about, things aren't going well at home.
yeah, exactly. That's right. Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, if my family's unhappy and I'm arguing with my wife all the time and I'm not seeing my kids as much because I'm riding and working out too much, that affects me.
Yeah.
Ultimately in my career as well. So finding that life balance is a big important thing for me.
Definitely. Yeah, I'm sure those guys listening to this right now who really work hard. They work hard for their family, and I think that what your experience was. You've always worked hard, but then as you gather more responsibility in your life and you take on the responsibility of being a father and a husband and a homeowner, then it's like, I think most guys perhaps don't go through the transitional process of adjusting to those extra bit of responsibilities.
Yeah, of course.
Like, you went from having one schedule. Well, obviously your schedule is going to have to be different to accommodate all those things moving forwards, right? Was it hard for you to make the choice to take 2 full days off with no training?
Not really, because around the same time I was just getting these injuries pop up because I was doing too much. I would just ride and work out every day until probably 7 or 8 days in, where my body's just wrecked and I have a day off, and then I'll do that again, and just because I would ride as much as I could. That's just what I enjoyed doing, and work out as much as I could. And then obviously it started to get to a point where I was doing too much, so I had to have a week off because my back was playing up or something like that, and then I would try and go again once my back's good, and it'll play up again, and I'd be having lots more time off overall than if I just had a couple of days off here and there, or a couple of days off a week. So we found that structure. We sort of me and a few of the guys on the Cycling Federation sort of found a structure that would work pre-Tokyo.
Yeah.
And we put that in play before the Olympics, and just sort of found that works. But it was hard because I was like, oh man, am I doing enough work? Am I doing enough? I'd have Wednesday and a Sunday off, and my other mates are like, oh yeah, we're going riding, we're going here on the days off where I feel like I can sort of keep going, and I'm like, I've only had 2 days riding, and Wednesday I have off, and like, oh man, I just feel like I'm not putting in enough work, and that starts playing on your mind, and I think I had to just make sure on the days on that I was doing enough, that I was actually putting in the work, riding hard, working out hard, so I earned that rest day.
Yeah.
And once I started to adapt to that routine, I started to realize that that's what was working for me.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Like, less is more. You're being more efficient with our time. And I think what you said there was great, in that it's like, okay, well, I'm never going to have more than 24 hours in a day.
Yeah.
That's just what it is. That's how fast the planet rotates. I'm not going to change that, So it's like, how can I be more productive within that 24 hours and within the 178 hours that's in a week, 168 hours, whatever it is, and that's got to be the questions that you ask yourself. And I think and there's always going to be more work to do, right? It's always going to be there.
Of course.
There's dudes that I know who really just can't help themselves.
Yeah.
Like, just, like they'll they get to one place, like they achieve one goal, and then it's like there's absolutely no rest before they get into the next one, and there's no rest within the process of achieving that goal as well. And those guys are experiencing what you're experiencing, which is like that burnout, fatigue, injuries, and then that causing them to have to take that time off.
Yeah, exactly.
So remembering that there's always going to be more. It's never actually ever going to be over. So if you don't take a rest, then you're never going to get one.
No, that's
Yeah. The work's just never going to be done.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, you're never going to get to the point where that's it. I've mastered BMX now. I never need to train ever again. It's just not going to happen.
No, exactly.
So there's got to be this schedule process of how you're spending your time.
Yeah.
So last question for you, man. Who has been the most influential person in helping you become the man that you are today? You can pick a few of those people if you like to.
So probably the person that influenced me on a bike, my career, and you know, sort of helped me see the path down BMX was Kyle Baldock, which I elaborate sort of more in my book about the friendship and stuff we had. But we just became mates. He was a couple of years older than me. He was very talented on the bike, and he made it in BMX, started winning events overseas, started making, a bunch of money and whatnot. And I was just like, and we, at that time we were good friends, and I was sort of feeding off him, and I was starting to learn the tricks that he could do and things like that. And I started to sort of realize, like, man, that's where I want to go. I want to make, I want to get these sponsors, and I want to make it on the international circuit and start competing with him, and start winning these events like he's doing. So that sort of that sort of led me down that way of thinking, like, that's what I want to do, competing and things like that. So at around 17, we became really good mates. I started sort of copying what he was doing. Our riding was very similar because I was copying what he was doing. And then after a few years, after 2 years of me competing, I started to realize, like, copying him wasn't going to help me. I had to become my own person. So I took inspiration from his riding initially, and then I steered down my own path and got my own style of riding and things like that. So in my career, he was the guy to sort of help steer that initially. And then along the way, it was always just sort of myself to, I guess I was inspiring myself to just work hard every day and be better every day after that, those initial few years of competing.
Nice. Yeah. You sort of, I think it's really important to have someone who's further down the path to kind of shine a light on at least some of those steps along the way for you, or at least prove to you that it's possible.
Yeah, of course.
Right?
Yeah.
And look, if you're listening to this, I would be very surprised if you were trying to achieve something that no one on planet Earth had ever achieved before.
Yeah.
Right? Which means that there's someone out there that's already done the thing that you're trying to do that perhaps you think is impossible.
Yeah.
So if you can just find the person who's already accomplished the goal that you're trying to accomplish, and all you have to do is, well, what did that guy do?
Yeah, exactly. That's right.
You know what I mean? How has he accomplished that? What steps did he have to take?
Yeah.
What attitudes did he have to, develop within himself and all that kind of gear? If you can literally spend time with that person, then that's obviously number one, right?
Yeah.
But even if, like, again, in this day and age, there's no excuse for not finding that guy.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
sure.
You just fucking put your hand in your pocket, lads, pull your phone out and search, have a look. Who's done the thing that you're trying to do?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
There is those mentors and things like that out there because of social media. You start to follow pages that you're interested in, pursuing, and then you'll start to see what certain people have done to get to the level that you want to get to.
That is a great point, actually.
In sport or business or whatever it is, social media is a massive way of the world now.
That's such a good point. I wouldn't have even mentioned that.
Yeah.
But you do realize, guys, that when you look on, especially Instagram, because it's so visual, that's you can create your own billboard, right, of shit that you just want to see.
Yeah.
If I open your phone right now, to the guy who's listening to this, if I open your phone right now, is your Instagram, if you have Instagram, or your Facebook, or whatever social media you go to, if I scroll through it, am I going to see examples of all the stuff that you're actually interested in or opportunities that you're looking for? Or am I going to see, like, dumb things like freaking meme pages, titty pics and all that kind of shit?
Yeah.
Like, those things are okay, but if that's what you're consuming consistently, then don't be surprised when your life isn't working out where you want it to.
Yeah, that's right.
You know what I mean? Like, I should be able to look at your social media or whatever it is that you look at the most. Maybe you read, or maybe you watch TV, or whatever it is. But I should be able to look at, if you're a guy who's trying to accomplish something, I should be able to look at what you're consuming consistently and see how it relates with the thing that you're trying to accomplish. Like you have power over what is shown to you on your social media feed.
Of course.
If it's not helping you, get rid of it.
Yeah.
If it's distracting you, get rid of it. And everyone who's on social media is trying to get your attention.
Yeah.
Right? So the dude that you're looking for, or the person that you're looking for, is on there.
For sure.
100%, and they want to give you the information you're looking for. They can't wait to share that information with you. And all you have to do is search for them, and then click a little blue button, and there you go. So there's no excuse.
Yeah, of course.
100%.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you so much for being here, Logan.
No
I
worries.
appreciate you taking the time out.
Yeah, of course.
And thank you for listening to the episode. Obviously, if you'd like to learn a bit more about Logan, you can check out his book, Journey to Gold. It is on Audible as well.
Yeah.
So if you're not a big reader, which I'm not, I'm more of an audiobook guy, then you can download that too. All right. Cheers, guys.
Cheers, guys.
Hey, mate, I hope you enjoyed that episode of the Unbreakable Man podcast. If you did, it would be absolutely fantastic if you could leave us a 5-star review, because that's going to help us get our message in front of more men who need to hear it. Now, if you have some feedback for me, I'd love to hear that too. Comment down below. And if you just need some mini doses of Unbreakable Man motivation throughout your week, then you can follow us across all social platforms. On Facebook, it's Unbreakable Man Challenge. On Instagram, it's Unbreakable Man _challenge. And on TikTok and YouTube, it's just Unbreakable Man. Your support would be absolutely invaluable. Now, last but not least, do not forget, men aren't born, they're built.